Well, good morning. The next big development in this story could come a little later this week. That is when former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot is expected to release some of her findings in her investigation into the village's finances.
Facing an uprising at home, Tiffany Henyard went on the road. It was a public relations tour meant to combat her critics. It wound up raising more questions than it answered. Once again,
Tiffany Henyard is overall pretty shameless and doesn't seem to care what anyone thinks as long as she's benefiting. But the Doughton and Thornton trustees have had enough of her and don't intend to let her get away with her antics any longer. With tense board meetings underway, they've sworn to bring her secrets to light and put her away for good. So Tiffany Henyard has been in the hot seat for a while now, and it seems like things have finally reached a boiling point. Trustees are accusing her of mismanaging village funds, residents are up in arms, and she's fighting back with accusations of harassment and political games. It's a mess, and we're here to break it all down for you.
News between Dalton's embattled mayor and the board of trustees.
Trustees say the village is facing financial disaster, and they blame the mayor for mismanagement. She says this is all just political retribution. WGN's Eric Rung live in Dalton for us this morning. Eric?
Well, good morning. The next big development in this story could come a little later this week. That is when former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot is expected to release some of her findings in her investigation into the village's finances. For months, it's been anything but business as usual at Dalton's village meetings.
People around you that wants what's best for the people, not what's best for Tiffany.
People need, and watching as this village being ran into the ground.
The fight over the village's finances continues to be at the center of this tug-of-war between Dalton's mayor and several trustees. They accuse her of overspending and mismanaging the village's money, while she and her allies accuse them of playing political games.
This village is bleeding. If these residents knew the truth, they'd hit the roof. This is targeted. This is harassment.
The residents of the village are calling for her to sell off these high-end SUVs she's been using for her security detail. These cars are costing the village way more than it can afford, and people are fed up. Henyard, though, is digging her heels in and accusing the residents of harassment and playing political games. She's not budging an inch and is really rubbing people the wrong way. Another piece of this puzzle is Keith Freeman, a township employee who's been labeled a whistleblower. The residents want him to stay on the job, but Henyard says she's fired him. The details are murky here, but it's clear that Freeman is being backed by people who see him as a crucial player in exposing the corruption. Henyard, on the other hand, is doing everything she can to distance herself from him, which is a little suspicious, don't you think?
The board also discussed selling a village-owned building that has a police sign on it but was never converted. They also discussed unloading Henyard's 4 SUVs used for her security detail.
We've spent almost $250 some odd $1,000 on these vehicles. If we keep the lease for the 5 years, which is 60 months, we would be spending $718,000. Most of them was signed without proper authority anyway.
You throw a lot of things up here that don't be true.
It's simple counting, baby.
Another issue board members are trying to square is the employment status of Henyard's former top aide, Keith Freeman, who is now charged with bankruptcy fraud. Henyard fired him from the Thornton Township, the other board she runs, but Dalton trustees consider him a whistleblower, and firing him, they believe, would set the village up for a lawsuit it can't afford. Henyard made it clear where she stands.
Keith Freeman is fired from the village of Dalton.
One of the biggest problems the trustees have to deal with is money. The township has been bleeding cash, and a lot of people are pointing fingers at Henyard. Trustees have been pretty vocal, revealing that Henyard has been spending unapproved funds, using what they're calling a shell game. That's right, a shell game. Honestly, that's just a nice way of saying she's been shuffling money around in ways that don't add up.
Henyard is finding a way to spend money that trustees say they intentionally did not approve, one describing it to me tonight as a shell game.
Is there a motion to approve the Gospel Fest?
Motion failed.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the House Fest?
Event after event denied for Thornton Township Supervisor Tiffany Henyard under an ordinance designed to rein in spending.
The residents love the events that we do here at Thornton Township. And prior to me, y'all have always had events. So I don't understand why it's a problem now that Tiffany Henyard is the supervisor.
The trustees say they won't greenlight the events because there's no approved budget yet.
can't continue to spend money without that in place.
The most recent cost causing concern, Henyard's Taste of Thornton Township last month. WGN Investigates obtained records that show singer Kiki Wyatt was paid $30,000 to sing for 30 minutes. Rapper Jay Holiday made $20,000 for a half-hour set. When you factor in staff, equipment, and other expenses, the total cost is at least $85,000, which is lower than WGN Investigates initially reported, but still raising
The
questions.
trustees even voted to not approve thousands of dollars for some of Henyard's events. But guess what? She had already spent all that money. I mean, who needs approval when you're Tiffany Henyard, right?
Extraordinary amount of money was spent unnecessarily.
Trustees voting not to approve thousands of dollars in expenditures for Taste of Thornton and other Henyard events. Money that's already been spent.
A lot of that spending was done on credit cards. We just don't agree with so much being put on credit cards. And then also recently it looks like even stuff that we voted not to pay then was put onto credit. So it's just kind of almost like a shell game, unfortunately.
But they don't have unanimous support from residents.
Since there isn't a budget passed, that maybe they should do the same for their salary. Suspend the salary until they pass a budget.
That budget could be coming soon. Trustees say it's under review by an accountant now. They also voted once again to put Henyard's name on a credit card despite her protest, they say, for accountability.
Now, let's talk about the taxpayer-funded party Tiffany threw. Brace yourselves because it cost the villager a whopping $85,000. I know. So what kind of extravagant event did taxpayers get for that kind of money? Apparently, Kiki Wyatt showed up and performed for just 30 minutes for $30. 000. Rapper Jay Holiday pocketed $220,000 for another half-hour performance. Aside from that, it was your basic daytime kids event with food vendors, not exactly a blowout worthy of the price tag, right?
The self-proclaimed super mayor is also apparently a super fan. She flew in nationally known R&B singer Kiki Wyatt to headline the Taste of Thornton Township last month. There were other performers plus daytime events for kids, but given the fury over Tiffany Henyard's spending, we were curious what the event cost. WGN Investigates obtained the bills through open records laws. They show Kiki Wyatt was paid $30,000 for a 30-minute performance. Rapper Jay Holiday made $20,000 for a half-hour set. Other costs, including comedians, bounce houses, staff, and equipment, add $35,000, meaning this single-day event cost South Suburban taxpayers more than $85,000.
I was flabbergasted. I was pissed off. That's my money. That's the people's money.
But here's the kicker, despite all that money spent, the party was a flop. According to trustees, only about 65 to 70 people showed up to this extravagant affair. That's right, folks, at $85,000 taxpayer-funded party for fewer than 70 people. Talk about
That was a flop. It might have been approximately 65 to 70 people there.
We out here in Taste of Thornton. Yeah, keep raining, but it's still going on. Right now they got the comedians up there.
To be clear, Henyard's predecessor also threw a Taste of Thornton Township event, but not on this scale.
See, this all for the babies. This is what they don't show you. They don't show you this side of Tiffany Henyard. The productivity.
She liked to use our tax dollars to promote herself. She have all of these events trying to buy the voters.
After a year's worth of WGN Investigates reporting detailing first-class travel, meals, and more that's now sparked a federal investigation, trustees in the two governments run by Henyard have tried to stop the spending. Even her former assistant, who's now a township trustee, recently said enough is enough.
I trusted the administration. I trusted the process. And the moment I didn't trust the process, I started asking questions.
Some trustees straight up believe that Henyard is a narcissist. Bold claim, right? But they seem to be right. Henyard knows her corruption is catching up to her, and she's about to go down. She's showing her true colors, and from what we've seen so far, the trustees are not wrong. Henyard has been on the defensive, and it's clear that she's feeling the pressure.
Henyard has a habit of claiming to be the boss in one moment, but denying responsibility in others. It recently sparked this reaction.
I do not want a credit card. I do not deal with money. I don't deal with anything.
Tiffany is a narcissist, and she is going to do what she wants to do. I feel like she knows that this is over, but she's going to go down kicking and screaming like an MMA fighter. She's just not going to stop until they put cuffs on her.
Most of the contracts for this event were signed before township trustees put spending controls in place. So it's possible the concert and other activities were something of a last hurrah for Tiffany Henyard, at least as far as parties go. The federal investigation continues. Even if she's charged, that won't expel her from office. It would take a conviction to do that, but voters will have their say when she's on the ballot next spring.
Speaking of going out kicking and screaming, Tiffany has been having full-blown shouting matches with trustees at township meetings, accusing them of launching a smear campaign against her. You'd think with all the evidence stacked against her, she'd maybe cool down a bit, but no, she's doubling down on the drama.
Happening tonight, community concerns in Thornton Township and a push to regulate what some call out-of-control spending by Township Supervisor and Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard. NBC5's Lexi Suter has more on tonight's showdown between trustees and Henyard.
Good evening. There were many tense moments in tonight's meeting. At times, Supervisor Tiffany Henyard took on her fellow trustees when it came to money and expenses, even accusing some of them of spreading lies about her.
Please tell me how you're out of order. You're out of order. How do they operate, trustees? How do they operate?
There were countless interactions just like this, elevated voices and heated debates about spending and the lack of a new budget. Several of the trustees questioned much of the township's spending, while Henyard says she's cleaned its finances up.
Y'all thought that I was young, dumb, didn't know nothing, was gonna let y'all come and manipulate me. I didn't do any of that. So because I didn't do any of that, you guys started this whole smear campaign.
When the township trustees recently voted to cancel some of her upcoming events, Tiffany did not take it well. She went on this long rant, accusing them of having hatred in their hearts for not wanting to fund her lavish events. And get this, she claimed the trustees were voting against her personally, not the events, because apparently everything is about Tiffany.
At one point in this 3-hour meeting, Supervisor Henyard demanded Finance Director Robert Hunt read through more than 100 line items that many trustees wanted to get rid of. For example, thousands of dollars to Amazon.
$169.99.
Thousands of dollars of cakes for community events.
102 Calumet Bakery.
And tens of thousands of dollars that were allegedly allocated for the one-day event, The Taste of Thornton Township.
We just had a couple events here in the past, month or so, that just extraordinary amount of money was spent unnecessarily.
As for upcoming events, the trustees voted to stop a few, including House Fest and Gospel Fest. Henyard accused the trustees of acting out of spite.
And right now, you guys are operating with hatred in your hearts. You're operating out of feelings. You're not operating with things that's going on, and I don't think that's fair to us. And I don't understand why it's a problem when we got a surplus in Thornton Township thanks to Supervisor Tiffany Henyard once again.
Here's where things get even juicier. Tiffany insists she's actually turned the township's finances around, but everyone can see through that. While she's making these big claims, she also accuses the trustees of being against her by saying that none of the previous supervisors' events were canceled. However, she's conveniently forgetting that her events are more expensive and over the top than any previous supervisors, and despite all that spending, they've been nothing but failures.
Again, with another contentious meeting involving Tiffany Henyard.
Tonight, it involves her role as Thornton Township Supervisor. The Board of Trustees voting to cancel upcoming township events. Despite Henyard's vote in favor of Gospel Fest, House Fest, Bingo all failed to pass. The tech-savvy event failed at first, but trustees then approved it with a limited budget. Henyard telling the board their votes were not about the community, but about her.
Because them residents love the events that we do here at Thornton Township. And prior to me, y'all have always had events. So I don't understand why it's a problem now that Tiffany Henyard is the supervisor when it wasn't a problem when Frank Zuccarelli was the supervisor.
Now, in her supervisory report, Henyard says she turned the township's financial situation around, claiming it had multi-million-dollar deficits in 2022 when she arrived. Now the township has a surplus totaling $9.7 million.
Things got so heated that at one point, Tiffany and her security officer had to quiet down an agitated crowd at a township board meeting. You can almost feel the tension in the air when you watch these clips. People are done with her antics.
We're on the cusp of celebrating Juneteenth. We come to a meeting here, and instead of us being professional, we're carrying on in the matter. Disrespectful. It's disrespectful to the people about being respectful. We teach them about being respectful. And we come to a meeting and we see disrupt. We see disrupt. But not only do we see disrupt, we see individuals that have an agenda. They have an agenda. And the agenda is based on what's happening in Dalton. It's about what's happening in Dalton. This has nothing to do with Thornton Township. You guys need
Tiffany, she's still not getting the message. When trustees called a special township meeting to get some answers about all this, she didn't take it seriously at all. She even had the nerve to call the whole thing clickbait. I mean, she's acting like this is some sort of online drama win. In reality, it's her village's money and future on the line.
Well, it took no time for this meeting to become combative, with Henyard multiple times questioning why this special meeting was called in the first place when the township was already set to meet next week. Trustees say that this was their way of getting answers.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out.
Thornton Township called a special meeting. Supervisor Tiffany Henyard called it clickbait.
But it saddens my heart that you are up here at this special meeting and not downstairs where we have big bingo.
She wanted media instead cover an event downstairs.
I'm advising you to make a U-turn and go downstairs because you come for clickbait.
The meeting happened hours after the state comptroller suspended funds to South Suburban Dalton, where Henyard is also mayor. She's being accused of mismanaging taxpayer funds there. It took no time for the township meeting to turn combative.
So why aren't you paying the staff? I don't see the staff on here. I think that's a very important deal to that.
And let's not forget, the FBI is still on her tail, from shell games with approved funds to extravagant parties and using village money for her personal gain. This saga is far from over, so will Tiffany finally face the music, or will Dalton residents be left to pick up the pieces of her mess? We'll have to wait and see. That's it for now. Don't forget to tell us what you think in the comments below. For more updates, hit the bell icon.